The bulb that learned to kill. Before America learned to sleep under electric light, it learned to die beneath it. Before the warm glow of a bulb entered every home, there was another glow. A violent blue-white flash inside a prison chamber. And behind both shadows stood one of the most celebrated names in human invention, Thomas Alva Edison. History remembers him as the man who brought light to the world. But tonight, we are not walking into the light. Tonight, we are stepping behind it. Because the same electrical age that promised to defeat darkness also created a machine designed to stop a human heart. A chair, a switch, a body strapped down, and a current chosen not only for science, but for war. This is the dark story behind Edison's light bulb, the war of the currents, and the execution chamber, where progress began to smell like burning flesh. The wizard and the lie of light. In the late 1870s, America was hungry for miracles. Cities were still breathing gaslight. Homes flickered with candles. Streets were dangerous, dim, and smoky. Whoever could control electric light would not simply become rich, he would own the future. And Thomas Edison understood that better than anyone. At Menlo Park, New Jersey, Edison built something the world had never seen before. Not just a laboratory, but an invention factory. Men worked through the night. Glass bulbs, wires, batteries, filaments, chemicals, everything was tested, broken, rebuilt, and tested again. But Edison's genius was not only in machines, it was in myth. He knew how to make the public believe the future had already arrived, even when the future was still failing on his workbench. In 1878, before his practical bulb was truly ready, Edison let newspapers believe he was on the edge of conquering darkness. Reporters came. Headlines exploded. Investors listened. The world began whispering one phrase: the Wizard of Menlo Park. But inside the laboratory, the truth was uglier. Filaments burned out. Glass failed. Metal melted. Promises ran ahead of reality. And then, in October 1879, Edison and his team finally found the breakthrough: a carbonized cotton thread sealed inside a vacuum bulb. It burned long enough to matter, long enough to make people believe, long enough to begin an empire. On New Year's Eve, 1879, crowds came to Menlo Park and watched electric lamps glow against the winter night. To them, it looked like magic. But magic always has a shadow. Because Edison had not merely invented a lamp, he had opened a marketplace. And marketplaces do not stay holy for long. Light becomes a business war. Edison's system ran on direct current, DC. It was safe enough at low voltage, but it had a weakness. It could not easily travel long distances. To light a city, Edison needed power stations close to customers. More stations meant more equipment, more copper, more cost. Then came the rival system: alternating current, AC. George Westinghouse backed it. Nikola Tesla helped make it powerful. AC could travel farther. It could be stepped up and stepped down with transformers. It was cheaper to spread across distance. To Edison, this was not just a technical debate. It was a threat to his empire. So the battle began, not in silence, not in laboratories alone, but in newspapers, courtrooms, public demonstrations, and fear. The public did not understand electricity. They only knew one thing. It was invisible, powerful, and sometimes deadly. And Edison's side knew exactly where to strike. If people could be made to fear AC, they might reject Westinghouse. If AC could be painted as dangerous, Edison's DC might survive. So electricity stopped being just electricity. It became propaganda. It became theater. It became death on display. The animals. This is where the story turns cold. To prove that alternating current was more dangerous, public demonstrations began using living bodies. Dogs, calves, horses. Animals were shocked in front of witnesses to show what AC could do. The message was simple and brutal. Westinghouse's current kills. The audience did not need equations. They did not need engineering diagrams. They only needed to see a body fall. And once electricity had been used to kill animals, the next question came naturally. Could it kill humans more humanely than hanging? That word, humanely, is one of the darkest words in this story, because it dressed horror in the language of progress. At that time, hanging was often slow and gruesome. Reformers wanted a cleaner death, a modern death, a scientific death. And in New York, the idea of electrocution began moving from theory to law. Edison publicly opposed capital punishment in principle, but when asked what kind of electricity should be used for execution, he pointed toward alternating current, the current of his rival. In other words, the electric chair could become more than a killing machine. It could become an advertisement, a message carved into the nervous system of America. AC equals death. The birth of the chair. The electric chair was not born from one man's hand. It was born from a courtroom, a prison, a political commission, and a corporate war. But Edison's shadow was there. Harold Brown, an anti-AC activist, became one of the central figures in the campaign against alternating current. Edison's laboratory and circle became part of the experiments and public argument. The goal was not only to kill condemned prisoners. The goal was to attach death to Westinghouse's name. There was even an attempt to popularize a new verb, to be Westinghoused. Imagine that. A rival's name turned into a word for execution. That is not invention. That is assassination by language. But history had already chosen its first victim. His name was William Kemmler. He had been convicted of murdering Matilda Ziegler with an axe. He expected the rope. Instead, he became the first man chosen for the machine. August 6th, 1890. Auburn Prison, New York. Morning. The room was small. The witnesses gathered. Doctors stood ready. The chair waited. Kemmler was strapped down. Electrodes were fixed to his body. The switch was prepared. This was supposed to be the future of execution. Instant, scientific, clean. Then the current hit. For 17 seconds, electricity tore through Kemmler's body. Then they stopped. The doctors checked him, and the nightmare began. He was not dead. He was still breathing. The machine of progress had failed in front of everyone. Panic entered the room. The witnesses saw what they were never supposed to see. Not a clean death, not a miracle of science, but a man trapped between life and the second strike. They prepared another charge, this time stronger. The switch was thrown again. Smoke rose. The smell filled the chamber. The humane machine revealed itself. And when it was over, George Westinghouse reportedly said the line that became history's verdict. They would have done better with an axe. The electric chair had worked, but it had also exposed the lie. Modern does not always mean merciful. Scientific does not always mean civilized. And light does not always come without a body in the dark. Edison loses the war. Here is the cruel irony. Edison helped brand AC as the current of death. But AC won. It was cheaper, stronger over distance, better for building the electrical future. Westinghouse and Tesla's system would help power cities, fairs, factories, and eventually the modern grid. The current Edison tried to bury became the current that lit the world. And Edison? He remained famous. He remained legendary. The public remembered the bulb. The school books remembered the genius. The statues remembered the inventor. But beneath that warm golden image was a colder truth. The age of electric light was also the age of electric death. The elephant myth and the shadow that would not die. Years later, another image would haunt Edison's name. Topsy, the elephant. In 1903, at Coney Island, Topsy was killed by poison, strangulation, and electrocution. The Edison Manufacturing Company filmed the death and released it as electrocuting an elephant. For years, people said Edison personally killed Topsy to prove AC was dangerous. That version is too simple. Historians now say Edison himself was not present, and there is no strong evidence that he ordered the killing. The War of the Currents was already over. But myths survive when they feel true. And the Topsy myth survived because it fit the shadow Edison had already cast. A man of light, a camera pointed at death, a company name on the film, a dead animal turned into spectacle. Even when Edison was not holding the switch, the world still saw his silhouette near the wire. So what was Thomas Edison? A genius? Yes. A builder of the modern world? Absolutely. But also a businessman who understood fear. A master of publicity. A man whose light bulb became a symbol of progress, while his electrical war helped push death into a new machine. That is the truth history tries to soften. The bulb did not simply defeat the dark. It taught humanity a new kind of darkness. Because sometimes the most dangerous inventions are not the ones that kill. They are the ones that make killing look clean. And when you turn on a light tonight, remember this. Every glow casts a shadow. And behind Edison's brightest invention, there was a chair waiting.